said in the picture that's in the
I
picture.
have no.
So never mind, I'm sorry to ask. Never mind.
My screen just disappeared. We're live somewhere, but I can't tell.
We're live somewhere right now? That doesn't work for me if we can't see what we're doing. That probably will get deleted. Technology problems persist today. It's all due to space weather, I'm sure. That's good to go.
We're live. I just can't see what I can't see what anybody can see yet. So. Just
Well,
go.
that's a problem. I don't. All right, then I guess we'll go. This is definitely one of the more awkward starts to one of our shows. Maybe we can edit it after we download it if it'll let us. Anyway, we're going to paint today. It's going to be watercolor, mixed media, using palette knives, different kind of stamps, little circle things. We got all kinds of things going on. We're going to use some Van Gogh watercolors. We're going to use some acrylic ink from Amsterdam. We have, for now, that's it. So we're going to get started with just laying out some color fields. I am going to go alla prima. I'm going to work wet into wet today. So I'm just going to saturate this 140-pound cold press paper. And I've already put actually some different stamps and scrapes through some tempera paint. So it's probably not real visible, but I laid down some tempera paint here, and here we have some transparent gesso here. And it's going to be a landscape inspired piece, river valley kind of thing, maybe from the Dordogne over in France. And I'm just saturating this. I know this is a super exciting part right now, but bear with me till we get this all wet. If I do this too soon, I'll get too many of the wrinkles. And I like the wrinkles, but I needed to do this while you're right here because otherwise it doesn't do the effects that I want. So it's going to be abstract. I'm doing an abstract expressionist kind of approach here with just some really beautiful colors. There we go. So I'm working, like I said, wet into wet. I'm going to do a little river thing down here at the base of a castle. I'm just laying out, just right out of the tube, this watercolor. I'm going to let that soak in for a minute or two. I'm going to add a little ultramarine next. Put that, scribble that on. Look at what it's already doing. It's some really super fun things. I think we're going to have a little bit of a sunset going on in this as well. So, what was the weird delay earlier is the screen isn't showing.
Well, they can't see what you're painting right now. I can't find the screen to open the screen.
Oh, is this one here on us?
Yes, that's the only one, and I have no control right now. I can't find the screen, and I'm losing my mind.
Can they see from this angle then? That one?
Yeah, if I'm over here trying to maneuver it, but now I can't see your head.
Well, that's all right. Nobody wants to see my face anyway, except for you. Well, we thought this was going to be a really cool demo for you, everybody, today, and then we ran into a lot of issues technically. So I don't know. Maybe we should just start over.
Now I've got somebody watching. I'm just gonna find my screen. I just have to find my screen.
So right out of the tube, and this is one of the things I'm going to be doing is I'm doing non-traditional watercolor, and some people maybe don't agree with that, but I like a lot of pigment, number one, and I'm going to be overworking this as well. So I'm going to really overwork the piece. But I'm also working, because I'm working alla prima, meaning working wet into wet, I'm allowing the moisture in the paper to do its stuff. And you can do this with the mixed watercolor paper that has some wood fiber and other fibers in it, but it doesn't do as well. The 100% cotton has a much more interesting absorption, and it's a lot more fun to play with. The other thing I'm going to work with today is this gouache from Royal Tenlins. Now watch what this thing does. If it's still wet, This is amazing. We're gonna have some really kind of saturated sun in the back. It's a sunrise or sunset. Isn't it? Red skies are good for. Well, that's funny. There's a feedback in the sound over there too.
Hold on, I'll fix that.
Best laid plans.
This is a nightmare.
It's funny that it's we spent all that time laying out all this new technology today, and it's just off the rails. I've been into the pink, so we're gonna put some pink in there. Pink skies. Look at how it's moving up in there already.
Found it.
Just fascinating. Stay with us. So I think she's found it. I'm going to do some palette knife work in a minute too to help move this color around that I've been scribbling in directly out of the tube from this watercolor. Then I have this castle that I laid in that I need to do some work on next too. I think we need a little different blue, a little lighter blue up here, just to add a little bit around the corners. Just dabbing the color right on. I threw some white up in here to give cloud effects, and we can add more of those in as we go. So I just keep building the surface today. There's a little yellow ochre, golden ochre. Beachy rock kind of thing going on the sides. I'm going to take and use my palette knife here. I'm going to move some of this color around. Some rocks along the side of the river. A lot of vegetation. It's a lush area we're thinking about here. River valley area. We're just going to keep building colors, more and more colors up. And allowing that water to transport that color around the scene. And the truth is I usually work a lot more abstract, but in the springtime, this never fails. The landscape stuff starts to come out because you know what? I miss my gardens. But we've had a lot of fun down on Leicester River in our area right now. That was funny. They said a very important phone call to make on the speaker thing. Just moving the color around. Get rid of some of that color on the edge. And then I think I'm going to try and move some of this around up here. It's a little bit windy tonight on this, I think, on this scene. Bring this around a little bit. There we go. Move that river up just a little bit to meet that sunrise, sunset, whatever you want it to be. Most people will be using brushes, and obviously I'm using a lot of palette knives. And I'm just scratching in there, sgraffito, scraping some texture, some line quality. Look, I'm a tree growing. Some bushes. Giving it kind of that texture that real life has a lot of texture in it, I think. If you don't like it, it's watercolor. You can lift it out of most paper. You can also blot it out with a little extra water. Or what I really like are the baby wipes. So if you got a real mistake to get to, use the ones that are natural so you don't get some weird chemical thing happening on your sizing. Okay, where is I want to find Payne's Gray. Read that with my glasses. And I'm gonna get this wet again because I don't want that Payne's Gray to really get in there. I'm just gonna move that right along the top. That'll transport itself right in. I think it's a little darker maybe right back here next to the castle. like, what castle? I don't see any castle yet. Let's get this a little wet again. Work some more Payne's Gray in there. We'll probably put a little acrylic on here as well today. Give it some additional accents. Working some shadows in. It's probably a little bit dark over here, so we're gonna, because that's behind in the shadow of the castle. I'm not really squeezing very hard here. I'm allowing the water to kind of pick the pigment up out of the tube. Let's start working on this reference to a building here. It's not really, I'm not looking for realism here. I'm looking for the impression of a landscape, the impression, the expression of a building. Let's get a little darker over here too. Look at the way it's transporting over there. Isn't that beautiful? It's just beautiful, gorgeous. Don't be afraid of your color when you're doing this. We always say create without fear. It's so important to do that, because that's where the innovation comes. Let's do something here and see if we can't spread a little bit of that color around. Whoops, I don't want to get too far into my castle. And I'm going to allow it to pool. I don't mind if it pools. I'm going to work that into the overall design as I'm developing this painting. And I will probably come back a little later. You can see because it's a form of masking. So I use that white tempera paint over here to kind of create some blocking, and I used this little tool here to create some little textures that aren't going to be visible to you yet. But at some point, we're going to get the color to come into here and start to highlight those little indications of the castle piece. And I'm just picking that color up, moving it around. It got pretty dry over here, so we're going to give that another good soaking. I feel like we need maybe a moon just getting started up here somewhere. Right about up in there. How's that? I like that idea. Let's do the moon right there. That is, we're gonna, where the moon is going today. We're gonna throw in the white. It's a full moon, I think. And there's a lot of, you're not gonna be able to see it now, but stay tuned and we'll show this again another time. Usually after these workshops, I'll take or these demonstrations, I'll post pictures on the Instagram, the Facebook, and other kinds of platforms that we have. Threads, we're on Threads now. Just directing. I love the capillary action of that color just working its way. Now I can use the blade of my palette knife again. I'm indicating some grass. There's really easy ways of doing things. Play with it, experiment. If you don't play when you're making, when you're doing this, you're never gonna really have a lot of growth. I think even those of us that have done this for a long time, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to show you what I'm doing today. I always work alla prima. I always work into wet, almost always. So for me, this isn't necessarily new, but using it with the watercolor as much as I am, it's new for me because I don't do a lot of watercolor. But guess what? I had a lot of watercolor. That's all in my supplies. And I realized I have so much that what am I going to do with it? So, and you can kind of splatter it as it dries. I don't know if you can see that, but it's creating some really cool little watermarks just by little squirts, little tiny squirts in there. I'm gonna get that darker over there, I think. There we go, look at that. Then we're gonna give that a little squirt, a little bit more so it blends. Oh, that's some nice texture happening. It's really dark behind the castle here, I think. See how it's already doing a capillary kind of thing. Again, it's the pigment is running with the fibers of the paint, or not paint, it's called paper. And I would, at least initially, until you get used to playing with this kind of a technique, I would let the pooling happen, because as it dries, it can leave pigment rings and it creates some really nice abstract sort of looks to it. Not really 100% happy with that, so I don't really want a lot of the lines of that magenta. I'd like to get this a little bit more fuzzy, so we're going to move that color around with our palette knife. This is watercolor, remember? I'm using a palette knife for watercolor. I'm going to have to create a little horizon line there in a minute, and that'll be kind of fun to do. You're going to see how I do that. And again, work in some of the color into the edges. Get some highlights on some of these trees. Picking that color up, moving it around. Highlight this a little bit over here. Some of these sunrises have been pretty nice around here in Duluth, Minnesota. Kristen's quiet over there because she was fighting with the technology.
Still fighting with it?
She's still fighting with it. I have no idea what's going on. I don't even know if anybody's watching anymore. But I'm happy if you are. I think there's probably quite a few. That's nice.
I'm currently having issues with it, right? So.
There always seems to be something for us to fix at least, despite our best efforts. Alright, so I think I'm about ready to add some, God, the color's just beautiful there. I wish you could see down in there. All the color that I put the tempera paint on, all that blue, a hint of purple, is bleeding up through and creating these really neat little rivulets, and it almost looks like a bunch of fjords in there. It's very, very nifty. So you have to, again, check back on my social media accounts and see how that turns out. We're not going to probably finish this today, but we definitely are going to have a lot of fun creating this. Now, castles a lot of times are limestone, and I'm afraid gray is not always the most fun, but let's just try it with a little bit of the gray acrylic. I've not done this particular technique before. This is the Amsterdam acrylic inks. Let's just, I don't know what's going to happen. So let's try a little bit here, and we're going to try and direct that around this again, just like we did all the really cool landscapes we've done. Maybe we should stop there in case this doesn't work. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some burnt sienna around the edges of these, right down there. Kind of give it a little highlight when I come into this with the starting to look like something. Okay, here we go. Wish me luck, everyone. So again, because this is the acrylic, when it dries, I won't be able to do a lot with, but while it's wet, we can manipulate it. We can add other colors as needed. I want that to work through because there's a texture there that you can't see. You can't see that texture that I laid in. And I just simply used this torn cardboard to get some kind of wall texture in there. And again, I used this scraper to get the ramparts in.
Can you put us a little closer to the smaller camera so that we can see better? The tools you just picked up?
Oh, this one over here,
Yeah, thank you.
that one, and this.
Awesome.
She speaketh. Now I'm gonna add, I want to kind of bring this a little darker over here, and I might bring that Payne's gray in there again. I may also try this. This is the black gouache, and it has a tendency to spread very quickly. The other thing I could do is some India ink. The India ink, because it's so fluid though, I'm a little concerned it's going to start to break into this other stuff, this structure. So I'm a little torn on what to do. I think I might just go with the gouache. Okay, let's try that. Just touching it in there, create some appearance of brick block. This is kind of working out the way I wanted down there, so I may not add a whole lot in there, but I wanted to darken this backside of the castle. Now I can take this and I can start to move some of that, create some little, because remember there is a wet, I'm working out of primo, wet into wet, and there is some tempera, white tempera paint down here, and so I'm using that almost like a sculpting ground to create this texture, to add the colors in. There we go. That's starting to look like rocks, right? I think anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pick up some of this color around here. Same thing, I'm going to start working that. And you can see it's starting to bleed into the ramparts. And you know, frankly, after it dries, I can come back and I can work it some more. It's mostly water-based. Put something over the top of it. Create without fear. That's what we always say. You're gonna make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, but that's how you learn, by making those mistakes. If you're always doing a perfect painting, how are you gonna ever learn something new and fantastic to play with? This is I used to make these sculptural clay castles, and the most tedious part was drawing all of the rock. It was very David Winter-like, you know, the process. It used to make me crazy. So I may try to find an easier way of doing this in the future for laying in rock. I might leave that alone because there's some really interesting things that you probably can't see yet down in there that look really cool, and I kind of want to leave that spot alone and have it dry. I can add media material later too. So I'm almost done with this for now. And then I think I'm gonna take and just, whoops. See what I mean? Always a mistake, right? There we go.
It's not really a mistake, it's a happy accident.
Happy little tree, happy accident. Yes, we are referencing it.
And I have to reference the time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's pretty fun. I'll save that pigment for a little later. So I also have some soft pastels that I can work into this as well. As it dries, I can start to add accents to that. I can re-wet it and add the accents to that. I've got some water-soluble art crayons. Those are fun to play with too. There's a lot of different things that we can do to help. Where'd the thing go? There it is. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to see if I can help define those a little bit better, my ramparts. That's a little better. There we go. I think that's starting to work. Yeah, that's starting to really show in some nice. I think we'll put a little, maybe some little windows down here to It's the lower ends. Okay, so that was a really quick, easy way to start something. And you know, as it dries, I'll start to work the surface some more. I'll add some more stuff, remove some things. But you saw very quickly we managed to get some really, really neat structures, some neat watercolors. And as this sets up, I'll start to work it a little bit more, and we'll have a really, really cool, fun piece. Kind of like some of the ones that I was doing here, which I was going to show initially. I guess I can show it that way, right?
Yeah.
Show it there. There's some of the ones that some of the things we're going to expect to see as we go. And there's another one that is a little bit less color. Whoops. It's okay. And then something with a lot of pigment in it. This had a lot of the gouache in it. Gouache is really fun. It's more opaque. The watercolor is more translucent. I want you to go out, have some fun, experiment, and we'll see you next time at davidaustingallery.com. See us on every social media, I think. My silent partner back there today, a little more than usual, is Kristen, who was struggling with our technology. Thanks, everybody. Remember, like and subscribe. We appreciate you all. Bye-bye.